Millionaire saw his ex with twins who looked just like him selling hot dogs on the street. Daniel Richardson stopped in the middle of the sidewalk as if he'd been punched in the stomach. The air left his lungs, his legs trembled, and for a moment he thought he would faint right there, in the middle of the busiest avenue in New York City. It couldn't be. This had to be a mistake, a cruel coincidence of fate. But when he saw her face behind the hot dog cart, with that colorful red and yellow umbrella, all doubts disappeared. It was Jessica. His Jessica. The woman he had left behind 9 years ago, when he decided that success was more important than anything else. "Mister, are you going to want anything?" A child's voice snapped him out of his trance. He looked down and felt his heart stop for the second time that afternoon. 2 identical girls, about 8 years old, stared at him with wide smiles. One of them held a napkin, the other had a small container of mustard, and both had his eyes. That same greenish-brown shade that his mother always said was rare in the family, the dimple in the chin, the shape of the face, the way they tilted their heads when waiting for an answer. The words wouldn't come out. That's when Jessica looked up and saw him. The color drained from her face. The bun she was holding fell onto the hot grill. For a few seconds that felt like an eternity. They just stared at each other, while the city noise continued around them, as if nothing was happening. "Emma, Olivia, get in the cart right now." Jessica's voice came out tense, controlled. "But Mom." "Now." The girls obeyed immediately, disappearing behind the makeshift counter. Jessica turned her face away, pretending to be busy arranging the buns, but Daniel saw her hands shaking. He took a step forward, then another. His expensive Italian shoes stepped into a puddle of dirty water, but he didn't even notice. All he could see were those 2 children, those little faces that looked like exact copies of his childhood photos that his mother kept in old albums. "Jessica," he called softly. She didn't answer. She kept her back turned, fiddling with things that didn't need to be fiddled with. "Jessica, please. We have nothing to talk about," she said without turning around. "Those girls, they're none of your business. They look like me. You're seeing things. Jessica, look at me." She finally turned around and Daniel saw tears glistening in the corners of her eyes, tears she refused to let fall. The face he had loved so much was thinner, marked by tiredness and worries that he could only imagine. But it was still beautiful. It was still the face that appeared in his dreams sometimes, especially on those nights when the success he had pursued so hard felt empty and cold. "Go away, Daniel," she said with a choked voice. "Go back to your world of luxury and leave me alone. I need to know. You don't need anything. You made your choice 9 years ago. Now live with it and let me live with mine." A customer approached the cart, breaking the moment. Jessica immediately put on a smile, a professional and fake smile that hurt Daniel more than any words could. She served the man efficiently, while the girls peeked from under the counter, curious about the man in the suit who had made their mother so upset. Daniel stood there for a few more minutes, not knowing what to do. People hurried past, horns honked, the smell of hot dogs mixed with oil and onion filled the air. But he was in another world, in another time, remembering when everything was different. He remembered the day he met Jessica. She worked at a small diner near the university, where he was doing his master's in business administration. She always had a genuine smile, always had a kind word, even on the busiest days. He started going to the place every day, making up excuses to chat a little longer, until one day he gathered the courage and asked her out. The relationship had been intense. Jessica came from a simple family, had modest dreams of having her own business one day, maybe a small restaurant. Daniel came from a middle-class family but had huge ambitions. He wanted to conquer the world, build an empire, and for 2 years, those differences didn't matter. They were happy. She supported his dreams, and he promised that when he made it, he would take her along. But then came the offer, an opportunity to work with a big investor, learn the secrets of the financial market, climb the career ladder quickly. The problem was that he needed to move to another city, dedicate all his time, have no distractions. And Jessica, with her simplicity and her small dreams, suddenly seemed like a distraction. He ended the relationship over the phone. Cowardly, cold, saying he needed to focus on his career and that she deserved someone who could give her attention. He blocked her number, deleted social media, cut all ties, and never looked back, at least not consciously. Now, there in front of that hot dog cart, all those years of ignoring, of pushing the memories to the darkest corner of his mind, collapsed at once. And the only thing he could think was, are those girls my daughters? More customers arrived. Jessica worked non-stop, preparing snacks quickly and efficiently, always with that fake smile on her face. The twins helped by passing napkins, grabbing soda cans from a cooler, counting change with that comical seriousness that children have when they want to show they're responsible. Daniel realized he couldn't stay there forever. People were already starting to look strangely at that man in an expensive suit, standing in front of a hot dog cart without buying anything. Reluctantly, he stepped away, but before leaving, he looked back one more time. One of the girls, the one who had been introduced as Emma, was looking at him with curiosity. When their eyes met, she gave a shy little smile and waved. Daniel felt his chest tighten in a way he had never felt before. He walked back through the city streets without really seeing anything. His thoughts were miles away, spinning in circles. Jessica never tried to get in touch, never asked for help, never said she was pregnant. Why? And if those girls were really his, why did she keep him away all these years? When he arrived at his apartment in the most expensive neighborhood in the city, with a view of the park and decor by a famous designer, everything seemed different. Empty, cold. He had achieved everything he wanted. He had successful companies, investments that grew every day, a respected name in the corporate world. But as he looked around that luxurious and silent space, he realized he had no one to share it with. He sat on the Italian leather sofa and picked up his phone. His fingers hesitated over the screen for a long moment before typing her name into social media. The profile was private. He tried other places, other ways to find information. Nothing. It was as if she had disappeared from the digital world, leaving only that physical presence at a hot dog cart on the avenue. The night was long. Daniel couldn't sleep, tossing and turning in the king-size bed, remembering details of Jessica's face, the way she had averted her gaze, the tension in her voice, and especially remembering those two identical girls with their happy laughter and eyes so similar to his that it couldn't be a coincidence. The next morning, he woke up early with a decision made. It didn't matter what had happened in the past. It didn't matter why she had hidden it, if she had even hidden it. He needed to know the truth. He needed to understand. At 7 in the morning, with the sun still rising, Daniel was back on the avenue. The hot dog cart was already set up, and Jessica was preparing the first hot dogs of the day. The girls weren't there yet, probably at school. He watched from afar for a few minutes, noticing how she worked with automatic movements, the result of years of repetition. How many early mornings had she woken up like this? How many hours of hard work while he slept on Egyptian cotton sheets? This time he didn't approach. Not yet. He needed to think of a strategy, a way to talk without her running away again. As he watched, a middle-aged man stopped at the cart, talked briefly with Jessica while she prepared his snack. There was familiarity between them, and Daniel felt a strange pang in his chest. Jealousy? He had no right to feel jealous. He had been the one who left, the one who cut all ties. Throughout that week, Daniel returned to the spot every day, always watching from a distance, always trying to understand the routine. Jessica worked from 6 in the morning until 8 at night, with a quick break in the middle of the day. The twins showed up after school, around 3 in the afternoon, and stayed there helping, doing homework in a little corner of the cart, talking with the regular customers who seemed to like the kids. He saw how polite they were, always smiling, always helpful. He saw how Jessica, despite visible tiredness, always had patience with her daughters, always found a moment to give them attention, to crack a joke, to hug them. And with each passing day, the certainty grew inside him. Those were his daughters. On Friday of that week, Daniel finally gathered his courage. He waited until the time when the girls usually arrived from school. When he saw them turning the corner with their colorful backpacks, he took a deep breath and approached the cart. "Good afternoon," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. Jessica looked up and saw him. Her face immediately closed off. "What do you want?" she asked quietly, looking around to see if the girls were nearby. They hadn't reached the cart yet. To talk, that's all. I already told you we have nothing to talk about. Those girls, Jessica, they're my daughters, aren't they? The silence that followed was more eloquent than any answer. Jessica turned her face away, but not before he saw the truth written all over her expression. You have no right to come here after 9 years and ask questions, she finally said, her voice trembling with pent-up emotion. I know I don't. But, Jessica, I saw their faces. They're identical to me when I was a child. My mother has pictures. Mom! One of the girls' voices interrupted. Emma and Olivia came running up, with their backpacks swinging on their backs. They stopped when they saw Daniel, and the same curiosity from the previous week returned to their little faces. It's that man again, Olivia whispered to her sister, but loud enough for him to hear. Girls, go to the back and organize things, Jessica ordered quickly. But we just got here. Now, Olivia. The mother's tone left no room for discussion. The two obeyed, but not before throwing curious glances at Daniel. He responded with a hesitant smile that made his heart race. Those were the same smiles he used to make as a child, the same way of wrinkling his nose. As soon as the girls were out of sight, Jessica stepped closer to him, her eyes blazing with barely contained anger. Don't you dare come near them, she hissed quietly. You lost that right when you left me without even looking back. I didn't know. You didn't know because you didn't want to know. You blocked me, Daniel. You blocked my number, my social media, refused to answer my messages that last week before you disappeared completely. What messages? I didn't get any messages because you had blocked me. I tried calling you, I tried texting you, I even asked my brother to try to get in touch, but you had vanished, had decided I no longer existed in your life. So I decided you wouldn't exist in mine either. The words fell on Daniel like stones. He opened his mouth to respond, but no sound came out. He had blocked her, yes. He had cut all ties deliberately because he thought it would be easier to move on, to focus on what mattered. It never crossed his mind that she might have been trying to say something important. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing. When did you find out? He asked, his voice hoarse. It doesn't matter anymore. Yes, it does. Jessica, please, I deserve to know. She laughed, but it was a humorless laugh, full of bitterness. You deserve? You think you deserve anything after throwing me away like I was trash? I was an idiot. I know that. But if I had known you were pregnant, would you have come back? Would you have given up your grand plans? Don't make me laugh, Daniel. You made it very clear in that call that I was a burden, a distraction from your dreams. Why would it have been different if you knew about the babies? Because they're my children. The phrase came out too loud, and some people passing by on the sidewalk looked over curiously. Jessica turned red, with anger and shame. Lower your voice, she whispered furiously. And no, they're not yours. Children aren't just biology. Children are care, presence, sleepless nights, bills to pay, hugs when they're sick. You did none of that. I did, alone. Daniel felt the words like stabs, each one of them true, each one hurting more than the last. Give me a chance, he pleaded, and there was a genuine desperation in his voice that even he found strange. A chance to get to know them, to be part... No. Jessica. No, Daniel. You're not going to waltz into their lives out of nowhere and then disappear again when you get bored. I won't let you do to them what you did to me. I won't disappear. You say that now, but what about when a better opportunity comes along? When the novelty wears off? When you realize having daughters means responsibility, means giving things up? I've changed. 9 years, Daniel. You had 9 years to change, and you only showed up here because you happened to see me. If you hadn't seen me, you would have gone on with your happy life without even knowing they exist. It was true, and that hurt more than anything. If he hadn't passed by that avenue on that specific day, he would never have known. He would never have met those 2 girls who were a part of him. The thought was terrifying. A customer approached the cart, and Jessica immediately returned to her professional role, preparing the snack with mechanical efficiency. Daniel stood there not knowing what to do. Part of him wanted to leave to respect her decision, but another part, stronger, refused to give up. When the customer left, he tried again. "At least let me help financially. I know it's not easy raising two." "I don't need your help," she cut him off. "We managed just fine on our own." "Jessica, you're working at a hot dog cart." "So what? It's an honest job. I pay my bills, put food on the table. The girls have everything they need. I don't need charity from anyone, least of all from you." The pride in her voice was undeniable, and Daniel understood that any offer of money would be seen as an insult, as if he were trying to buy his way back into their lives. "It's not charity," he said softly. "They are my daughters too, whether I was present or not. I have responsibility." Responsibility? Where was your responsibility 9 years ago? Where was it 3 months later when they were born, and I went through an emergency C-section alone? Where was it when they were 1 year old and hospitalized with pneumonia, and I spent 5 sleepless nights at the hospital? Where was it at every birthday, every first day of school, every time they cried, asking for a father they never knew? Each question was an accusation, each word weighed tons. Daniel had no answer for any of them. He had been building his empire, making connections, earning money. He had been living a life that now seemed completely empty. "I'm sorry," was all he could say. "I know it doesn't change anything, but I'm truly sorry." Jessica looked at him for a long moment. Something passed through her eyes, something that could be exhaustion, or sadness, or maybe even an echo of what they had once been to each other. "I'm sorry too," she said quietly. "Sorry that you missed so much. Sorry that they grew up without a father. Sorry that we wasted what we had. But that doesn't mean I'm going to let you into our lives just like that. Not now." "Then when?" "I don't know. Maybe never. I need to protect my daughters, Daniel. And that includes protecting them from you." The words hurt, but he understood. He hadn't earned the right to be part of that family. Not yet. Maybe never. He nodded slowly and began to walk away. But before leaving completely, he stopped and looked back one last time. "Just one more thing," he said. "What are their names? Full names?" Jessica hesitated, as if even this information was too much to share. But she finally answered, "Emma Richardson Parker and Olivia Richardson Parker. Richardson." She had given them his last name. That meant something. It had to mean something. Daniel felt warmth in his chest, a small spark of hope. "Thank you," he said, and truly meant it. During the following days, Daniel couldn't think of anything else. At the office, during important meetings with investors, his mind wandered to that avenue, to that colorful food cart, to those 2 girls he now knew were named Emma and Olivia. His partners noticed his distraction, but he made vague excuses about being tired. At night, alone in his luxury apartment, he researched everything he could about late fatherhood, about how to approach children you've never met. The articles were discouraging. They spoke about trauma, about rejection, about children growing up resentful toward absent fathers. But they also spoke about possibilities, about how it's never too late to try, to be present. On Wednesday, Daniel made a decision. If Jessica wasn't going to let him get close to the girls, at least he could try to understand the situation better. He hired a private investigator, something he never imagined he would do. Not to invade privacy, he told himself, but to get information, to know what he was dealing with. The report arrived 3 days later. Daniel read it sitting in his office chair, feeling his stomach turn with every page. Jessica Parker, 33 years old. Single. Mother of twins Emma and Olivia, 8 years old. Has worked as a street vendor for 6 years. Before that, had a job at a small restaurant that closed. Lives in a 2-bedroom apartment in a modest neighborhood on the east side. No significant bank debts at the moment, but had serious financial problems 5 years ago when the daughters needed emergency medical treatment. Spent 2 years paying off hospital bills in installments. No record of serious relationships since the children's birth. Receives no financial help from anyone. The girls attend public school, have good grades. They participate in a social after-school tutoring project twice a week. Daniel closed the report and rested his head in his hands. Emergency medical treatment. She had gone through that alone. The twins had been at risk and he hadn't been there. He didn't know. He had no idea. The more he thought about it, the more the guilt grew. And with the guilt came determination. He couldn't change the past, but he could try to do things differently in the present. He just needed to figure out how. The following Friday, he went back to the food cart, but this time, instead of trying to talk to Jessica, he simply bought a hot dog and walked away. He did this every day for the next week, always at the same time, always ordering the same thing, always paying the exact amount and leaving with nothing more than a polite greeting. Jessica watched him suspiciously, but gradually her stance relaxed. After all, he wasn't causing trouble. He wasn't trying to get close to the girls. He was just being a regular customer like so many others. In the second week, one of the twins recognized him. "You're that man who always comes here, right?" Emma asked while handing him a napkin. "Yes, I am," Daniel replied, trying to keep his voice casual despite his racing heart. "Do you really like hot dogs?" "I do. Your mother makes the best ones in the city." The girl smiled proudly, and that smile made Daniel's chest tighten. It was her smile, exactly hers. "She learned from Grandma," Emma continued casually. "Grandma had a restaurant before. We never met her. She was already gone when we were born." Daniel remembered. Jessica's mother had passed when they were still dating. It had been a difficult time for her, dealing with the loss while trying to keep the family restaurant running. He had been there for her then, had given her his shoulder to cry on, until he decided his future was more important. "I'm sorry about that," he said sincerely. "It's okay. Mommy says she's always here with us, in our hearts." Emma tapped her small chest seriously. "And she taught Mommy everything before, so it's like she's still teaching us too." "Your mother is a very strong woman." "Yes, she is. She's the best mom in the world," the girl declared with childish conviction. At that moment, Jessica appeared with the hot dog ready. Upon seeing her daughter talking to Daniel, her face closed off. "Emma, go help your sister with the soda," she said, handing the snack to Daniel. The girl obeyed without complaint, but not before giving a little wave to Daniel, who discreetly returned it. "Don't talk to them," Jessica said quietly but firmly. "She started the conversation with me. I just answered." "Well, don't answer. I don't want them getting attached." "Attached? Jessica, I'm their father." "You're a stranger to them," she cut him off, "and you'll keep being one. Please, Daniel. If you still have any respect for me, keep your distance." He wanted to argue, he wanted to fight, but the plea in her voice stopped him. Instead, he just nodded and walked away. With the hot dog he no longer had any desire to eat. But he didn't give up. He kept coming back every day. And little by little, very slowly, Jessica seemed to get used to his constant presence. She was still cold, still avoided conversations, but she didn't shoo him away anymore. The twins, on the other hand, were naturally more open. Whenever they saw him, they smiled and waved. Sometimes they made little comments about their day, about something that happened at school. Daniel absorbed every word like it was gold, storing every detail in his memory. It was like this, in short, fragmented conversations, that he got to know his daughters. Emma was the more talkative of the two, had a talent for drawing and dreamed of being a veterinarian. Olivia was shyer, but when she got excited about a topic, she would talk non-stop. She loved math and was fascinated by stars. Each new piece of information made Daniel's heart tighten. These were his daughters who had personalities, dreams, and their own tastes, and he had missed 8 years of all that. One day, he arrived at the food cart and found Jessica visibly worried. She was on the phone with someone, her voice tense. I know it's late, but I swear I'll get the money by the end of the month. Please, just 2 more weeks." When she hung up, there were tears in her eyes. She wiped them quickly when she noticed Daniel was there. "The usual?" she asked, trying to hide it. "Is everything okay?" "It's great. What do you want?" "Jessica." "Daniel, please, just place your order and go." He didn't insist, but that night he looked into the location where she worked and discovered her permit was at risk. There were irregularities in the documentation, overdue fines. If she didn't fix it soon, she would lose the right to work on that avenue. The next day, Daniel made some calls. He knew people at City Hall, had contacts who could help. It wasn't hard to resolve the situation. The fines were paid, the documentation was sorted. All without Jessica knowing where the help had come from. When, 3 days later, she received the notification that everything was in order, Daniel was there, making his daily order. He saw the confusion on her face when she read the paper, saw when she started to suspect. "It was you," she said, not a question. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Daniel, don't treat me like an idiot. You fixed this, didn't you?" He sighed. "You were worried. I said I didn't need your help. I didn't do it for you. I did it for the girls. They need you to have this stable job. You have no right to interfere in my life." Her voice had risen, and some people started to look. The twins who were inside the cart appeared frightened. "Mom, what's wrong?" Olivia asked, her eyes wide. Jessica took a deep breath, trying to control herself. "Nothing, sweetie. Go back inside." But the damage was done. The girls had seen their mother yelling at that man who always came to buy hot dogs, the man who had been kind to them. And now they looked at him cautiously, as if they had suddenly realized there was something wrong there. Daniel felt as if he had been punched. He had tried to help and only made everything worse. "I'm sorry," he said softly to Jessica. "I just wanted to help. But you're right. I shouldn't have interfered without asking." He walked away before she could answer, before he could see the girls' expressions change from caution to confusion. When he looked back, before turning the corner, he saw Jessica hugging both of them, explaining something he couldn't hear. That night, Daniel sat on his balcony, overlooking the lit-up city, and seriously thought about giving up. Maybe Jessica was right. Maybe he was just getting in the way, bringing complication to a life that was already hard enough. Maybe the best thing was really to disappear and let them move on in peace. But then he remembered Emma's smile, the way Olivia bit her lip when she was focused, just like he did. He remembered they were his daughters, and he had already lost so much time. Could he really give up now? The phone rang, pulling him from his thoughts. It was his partner, talking about an important meeting on Monday. Daniel barely listened. His head was somewhere else. His heart was at that hot dog cart miles away. The next morning, he didn't go to the avenue. He decided to give Jessica space, let her calm down. Instead, he went to the park where he knew she usually took the girls on Sundays, according to the investigator's report. He sat on a bench from afar, just watching. Jessica was playing with the twins, pushing them on the swings, laughing when they asked to go higher. It was a simple, everyday scene, the kind of thing he had seen thousands of times without paying attention. But now, seeing his family there, it seemed like the most beautiful thing in the world. "Are you going to stand there or come talk to me?" Jessica's voice startled him. He hadn't noticed when she approached. The girls continued playing on the playground, unaware. "I didn't want to bother," he said, standing up. "Are you following me now?" "No, I just wanted to see you from a distance. I swear I wasn't going to approach the girls." Jessica sighed and sat on the bench. After a moment of hesitation, Daniel sat beside her, keeping a respectful distance. "You're not going to give up, are you?" she asked, but there was no anger in her voice, just tiredness. "I can't. They're my daughters, Jessica. Biology doesn't make you a father. I know. But it has to mean something, right? It has to give me at least a chance to try." They stayed silent for a moment, watching the girls. Emma had climbed the slide and was calling for her mother to watch. Jessica waved and smiled, and for an instant, Daniel saw the woman he had loved years ago, before everything got complicated. "Have you really changed?" Jessica asked suddenly. "Or are you just here because you feel guilty?" The question was fair. Daniel thought carefully before answering. "At first it was guilt, yes. When I saw you that day, it was like getting slapped in the face. I realized everything I had lost, everything I had thrown away, but now it's more than that. Every time I see them, I feel like there's a piece of me that was missing, and I didn't even know. I want to know my daughters, Jessica. I want to be present. Not out of obligation or guilt, but because I really want to." "But for how long? until another more interesting business opportunity comes up, until you realize that being a father is hard and demanding. I'm not leaving again. You say that now. And I'll keep saying it, every day as many times as you need to hear it. I made a mistake, Jessica, a big one. But I won't make that mistake again. Jessica looked at him for a long moment, searching for lies, searching for flaws. Daniel held her gaze, letting her see everything he was feeling. I need to think, she said finally. It's not just about me. It's about them. I can't let you into their lives if I'm not sure you'll stay. How much time do you need? I don't know. Maybe a few weeks, maybe months, I don't know. I'll wait, Daniel said without hesitation. As long as it takes. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out now continuing. One of the girls called for Jessica at that moment. She got up from the bench, but before leaving, she looked at Daniel one last time. Don't show up in the car for now, it's confusing them. Okay, whatever you want. She nodded and went toward her daughters. Daniel stayed there sitting, watching her help Olivia climb the monkey bars. It was a small progress. It wasn't much, but it was something. The following weeks were the hardest of Daniel's life. Not being able to go to the car, not being able to see the girls even from a distance, was torture. He threw himself into work, trying to distract himself. He closed deals, expanded investments, but everything seemed empty, meaningless. His partners commented that he was different, less focused, more distracted. Some even suggested he might need a vacation, but Daniel knew vacations wouldn't solve it. What he needed was his family, a family he had, but couldn't have. It was during one of those sleepless nights, tossing and turning in bed, unable to sleep, that his phone rang. It was an unknown number. When he answered, he recognized Jessica's voice. One of the girls is sick, she said, her voice trembling. Emma. She has a very high fever and I can't leave work right now. There's a huge line of customers and I can't leave the cart. The school called, said I need to pick her up urgently. I'll go, Daniel interrupted, already getting out of bed. Daniel, send me the school address. I'll pick her up and take her to the hospital. You'll come as soon as you can. But she doesn't know you. Then it's time she did, he said firmly. Send the address, Jessica. Now. After a moment of hesitation, she sent it. Daniel dressed in record time and rushed out. The traffic was heavy, but he drove urgently, swerving around cars, ignoring angry horns. When he arrived at the school, he ran through the reception. A staff member stopped him. Can I help you? I'm here to pick up Emma Richardson Parker. Her mother can't come. She's sick. And you are? I'm the father. The word came out naturally, without hesitation. The staff member checked some papers, confused. Your name isn't here in the emergency contacts. Please, Daniel begged. She has a high fever. I need to take her to the hospital. You can call her mother and confirm if you want. The woman made the call, spoke briefly with Jessica, and finally nodded. You can pick her up in the infirmary. Daniel ran down the indicated hallway. When he entered the small infirmary, he saw Emma lying on a cot, her little face red with fever. The school nurse was beside her, applying compresses. Emma, he called softly. The girl opened her eyes, taking a moment to focus on him. When she recognized him, she looked confused. The hot dog guy, she asked in a weak voice. Yeah, it's me. Your mom can't come right now, so she asked me to pick you up and take you to the doctor. Is that okay? Emma looked at the nurse, who confirmed with a gentle smile. Okay, the girl agreed, and that simple trust made Daniel's heart tighten. He carefully picked her up, feeling how burning hot she was from the fever. She rested her little head on his shoulder, and in that moment, Daniel felt something he had never felt before, a protective instinct so strong it hurt. That was his daughter, his little girl, and she needed him. On the way to the hospital, Emma said disjointed things, half delirious from the fever. You're nice, she murmured. Mum gets mad when you come, but I think you're nice. Thank you, little one. You have eyes like mine. I do? Yeah. Aunt Sarah said that one day. She said I had the same eyes as that guy, and Mum made a weird face. Daniel didn't respond, just held the girl a little tighter against his chest. So other people had already noticed the resemblance. Jessica had been living with that burden, with people commenting, asking questions. At the hospital, he went through the whole process with Emma, talked to doctors, authorized tests, held her little hand when they put in the IV. She cried a little, but she was brave. "You're strong," he said, wiping her tears. "Mom always says that," Emma replied with a weak smile. "Your mom is right." When Jessica finally arrived at the hospital, almost 2 hours later, she was visibly desperate. Her eyes searched for her daughter before even seeing Daniel. When she saw him holding Emma in his arms as she slept with the fever already going down, thanks to the IV and medication, something passed over Jessica's face: relief, gratitude, and maybe, just maybe, a little bit of recognition. "How is she?" Jessica asked, running over to them. "The doctors said it's a bad virus. She needed IV medication because the fever was very high, but she's better now. She just needs to be observed for a few more hours." Jessica looked at her sleeping daughter, then at Daniel. There were tears in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. "I didn't know who else to call." "You can always call me," Daniel said. "Always, Jessica, for anything." They spent the next few hours sitting side by side in the hospital waiting room. Sometimes they talked, sometimes they stayed silent. Daniel told her how desperate he had been when he got the phone call, how he had run every possible red light to get there quickly. Jessica told him how terrible it had been to have to stay at work while her daughter needed her. "I hate this," she admitted, her voice tired. "I hate that whenever they need me, I have to choose between being present and making money to survive. No matter what I choose, I'm always failing at something." "You're not failing," Daniel said with conviction. "You're doing the best you can. They're lucky to have a mother like you." "It doesn't seem like it," she laughed humorlessly. "Today the school calls and I can't go. What if it was something more serious? What if—" But it wasn't, and I was here. Jessica looked at him, really looked, for the first time since they had reunited. "Why did you do this, Daniel? Why did you drop everything and come running?" "Because she's my daughter," he answered simply, "and when your kids need you, nothing else matters." "But you're not—" "Yes, I am," he interrupted her. "Maybe I haven't been present. Maybe I've missed 8 years, but I am her father, theirs, and I'll prove that to you, as many times as it takes." Jessica said nothing, but she didn't look away either. And in that moment, in that hospital hallway smelling of disinfectant and artificial light, something shifted between them. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. When Emma woke up, it was almost dawn. She saw her mother and smiled, then saw Daniel, and her expression grew confused. "You're still here?" she asked. "Of course. I wasn't going to leave you alone. But Mommy's here now." "I know. But I still wanted to stay and make sure you were okay." The girl thought about it for a moment, that seriousness children have when processing something important. "You're nice," she said finally. "Even if Mommy thinks you're not." "Hey, I never said he's not nice," Jessica protested, but there was a small smile on her lips. "You make a face like you think it." "Emma." "What? It's true." Daniel laughed, and after a moment Jessica laughed too. It was a beautiful sound, one he hadn't heard in years, a sound he had forgotten he loved. They let Emma leave before noon. Daniel insisted on driving them back home, and this time Jessica didn't protest. That's how he saw for the first time where she lived, where his daughters had grown up. It was a small apartment on the second floor of an old building. The paint was peeling in some places and the stairs creaked. But when they entered the apartment, Daniel saw that inside it was clean, organized, full of life. The girls' drawings covered the walls, smiling photos decorated every available surface. It wasn't luxurious, but it was clearly a home full of love. "You can sit," Jessica offered, pointing to the small sofa. "I'll take Emma to her room." Daniel sat and looked around while he waited. There was one photo in particular that caught his attention. It was from when the girls were babies, probably a few months old. Jessica was in the middle, holding both of them, her face exhausted but happy. She was too thin, with deep dark circles, but the smile was genuine. When Jessica returned, she found him looking at the photo. "That was one of the worst times of my life," she said, sitting in an armchair. "And also one of the best. Confusing, huh? How was it? The birth, I mean. The first few weeks. Jessica hesitated, as if not sure whether to share. But then she started to speak, and once she started, the words flowed. She told him about finding out she was pregnant 2 months after he had left, about trying to get in touch and discovering she was blocked on everything, about telling her family and seeing the disappointment on their faces. Her mother had just passed away, and now she was pregnant with a man who had discarded her. She talked about working until the last possible day, saving every penny because she knew she would need it, about the emergency delivery when she went into premature labor at 7 months, about seeing the babies so small and fragile in the incubators, afraid they wouldn't survive. And she told him about the following months, which were a blur of sleepless nights, feedings every 3 hours, endless diapers, about feeling constantly exhausted, constantly at her limit, but also about the first smiles, the first steps, the first words, about realizing she had raised 2 amazing people without anyone's help. Daniel listened to everything in silence, feeling each word like a stab. She had gone through all that alone, all of it. And where was he? Networking at expensive dinners, closing deals, accumulating money that now seemed to have no meaning. "I'm sorry," he said when she finished, his voice hoarse with emotion. "I know it doesn't change anything, but I'm sorry. For everything." "I know you are," Jessica replied tiredly. "But being sorry doesn't change the past." "No, but it can change the future." She didn't answer, just looked at him with that tired expression he was starting to recognize. It was the expression of someone who had waited for changes before and had been disappointed. "Emma liked you," Jessica finally said. "While I was putting her to sleep, she kept talking about how kind you were, how you stayed with her at the hospital. She's special. They both are. They deserve the best, Daniel. They deserve someone who will always be there, not just when it's convenient. I will always be there. You say that, and I'll prove it. Not with words, but with actions. As many times as it takes, Jessica, I'll prove I've changed." Olivia appeared at the bedroom door then, rubbing her sleepy eyes. "Mum, Emma is calling for you." "I'm coming, sweetie." Jessica stood up. "Daniel, I think it's better if you go. They need to rest." "Of course." He stood up too. "If you need anything at all, call me." "Okay." When he was almost at the door, Olivia stopped him. "Are you the man who took care of Emma at the hospital?" "Yes, I am. Thank you. Emma is my best friend in the whole world. I was really scared for her." Daniel crouched down to her eye level. "She's okay now. And when you get scared, you can call me too. I'll take care of both of you, okay?" The girl looked at him with those eyes so much like his, processing the information. "Are you going to be our friend?" "I'd really like that." "Okay then. But only if you promise not to make Mommy cry. Sometimes she cries when she thinks we're not looking. I don't want her to cry anymore." Daniel's heart broke and mended at the same time. "I promise to do my best to never make your mother cry again." Olivia smiled and ran back to the room. Jessica had watched the whole exchange from the doorway, and when Daniel looked at her, he saw tears in her eyes. "Go," she said softly, "but you can come back every now and then, if you want." It was a small step, tiny even, but to Daniel, it felt like he had just won the world. The following days were different. Daniel didn't go to the cart every day like before, but he went a few times a week. And when he did, Jessica let him talk to the girls. Nothing too deep yet, just casual conversations. But it was progress. Emma recovered quickly from the virus and became especially attached to Daniel after the day at the hospital. She started saving drawings to show him when he appeared. Olivia was more cautious, watching from a distance before approaching. But little by little, she began to open up too. One afternoon, Daniel arrived at the food cart and found Jessica clearly worried. She tried to hide it, but he was already learning to read her expressions. "What's wrong?" he asked. "Nothing, just tired." "Jessica, really, it's nothing you can help with." But Olivia, who was doing homework in a corner of the cart, spoke without looking up from her notebook. The landlord said he's raising the rent again. Mom's worried because she doesn't know if she'll be able to pay. Olivia, Jessica scolded, but the girl just shrugged. What? It's true. Daniel looked from Olivia to Jessica. How much does he want to raise it? It's none of your business. Jessica, please, let me help. I don't want your help, I've said that. But, Daniel, no, she said firmly. I'll figure it out. I always have. And she did. Daniel found out a few weeks later that she had started working on Sundays too, which were the only days she used to have off before. The girls now spent Sundays with a neighbor. He hated that. He hated knowing she was working herself to death when he had money to spare, when he could fix everything with a simple transfer. But he knew that if he offered again, she would just pull away. Her pride was a wall he still didn't know how to break through. It was on one of those Sundays that Daniel had an idea. Instead of offering money, how about offering time? He called Jessica. Hello? She answered, with street noise in the background. Hi, are you working? Yes, why? And the girls? They're at Mrs. Jenkins' house, the neighbor. How about if I pick them up and take them to the park? Or to the mall, I don't know. Somewhere fun. You can work in peace and they can have a good time. There was silence on the other end of the line. You want to spend the whole day with them? Jessica asked, clearly surprised. I do. If you'll let me, of course. Daniel, they're kids. They're 2 8-year-olds with a lot of energy. It's not just sitting and talking. I know. And I want to do it. I want to really get to know them. Please. Another silence. Daniel could almost hear her thoughts turning. Let me ask them first, she said finally. Of course. A few minutes later, Jessica called back. They agreed. But Daniel, if they ask to come back, you bring them immediately. And don't buy them everything they ask for just because. I promise. And, Jessica, relax. It'll be fine. When he arrived at the neighbor's house to pick up the girls, they were already waiting at the window. They came running out the door as soon as they saw him with that childlike excitement that was impossible not to find adorable. Where are we going? Emma asked, jumping. Wherever you want. Amusement park, the two shouted in unison. Amusement park it is, Daniel laughed. The day was chaotic. The girls had endless energy, wanting to go on every ride, eat cotton candy and popcorn and hot dogs, just because they were never satisfied with just hot dogs. Daniel ran after them, spun on carousels that made his stomach turn, won stuffed bears in games that were clearly impossible to win, but it was also the best day he'd had in years, maybe in his whole life. In the late afternoon, exhausted and happy, they sat down for ice cream. The girls talked at the same time, telling stories about school, talking about teachers and friends that Daniel didn't know but pretended to know. You're cool, Emma said suddenly, in the middle of a story. Cooler than I thought you'd be. Thank you, Daniel laughed. Mom said you were going to leave and never come back, Olivia added. But you're still here. Daniel's smile wavered. She said that. She didn't want us to hear, but we hear everything, Emma explained, with the particular wisdom of children who grow up too fast. We know she gets mad at you sometimes, but she's not really mad. It's that kind of mad you get when you're scared. Scared of what? The two exchanged glances, having one of those silent conversations twins seem to have. We don't know, Olivia admitted. But there's something. She looks at you in a weird way, like when we want something but are afraid to ask because it might not happen. Daniel didn't know what to say. They were just children, but sometimes children saw things that adults were too good at hiding. You two are very smart, he finally said. We are. Our teacher always says that, Emma replied without modesty. When he dropped them off at the neighbor's house at the end of the day, they both hugged him. It wasn't planned, wasn't expected. It just happened. And in that hug, feeling those two small children holding on tight, Daniel felt something he had never felt before. Unconditional love, pure, without complications. That night, when Jessica came to pick up the girls, they wouldn't stop talking about their day. He won a giant bear for us, Mom. And we went on the roller coaster 3 times. And we ate lots of cotton candy. Jessica listened to everything with a smile that tried to be stern but couldn't. Sounds like you had fun. A lot. He's cool, Mom. Why didn't you ever let us meet him before? The innocent question made Jessica choke up. It's complicated, sweetie. But it doesn't have to be complicated, Emma insisted with the simple logic of children. If he's cool and you like him, why does it have to be complicated? I didn't say I like him. You don't have to say. We can see it. Jessica looked at her daughters, those little creatures she had raised alone but who now seemed older, more observant than she had realized. Let's go home, was all she said. But that night, after putting the girls to bed, Jessica kept looking at the old photos she kept in a box in the closet. Photos of her and Daniel, from when they were happy, from when everything seemed possible. She had kept everything, all the memories, even while telling herself she had moved on. Maybe, she thought for the first time in years, maybe things could be different this time. Maybe he really had changed. Maybe she could give them, a chance. But the fear was still there. The fear that he would leave again, that the girls would get hurt, that she would get hurt. Because even after all these years, a part of her still loved Daniel Richardson, and that scared her more than anything else. Sundays with the girls became routine. Daniel would pick them up in the morning and they'd spend the day together. Sometimes they went to the park, sometimes to the movies. Sometimes they just stayed at his place and made popcorn and watched cartoons. Daniel was learning to be a father, and the girls were learning to have one. It was on one of those Sundays, while making cookies in his kitchen, that Olivia asked the question he had been expecting, but didn't know how to answer. Are you going to be our real dad? Daniel stopped mixing the dough and looked at her. Emma had stopped too and was waiting for the answer. I already am your dad, he said carefully. I always have been. But you were never here before, Olivia pointed out. I know, and I'm sorry about that. Why weren't you here? Emma asked. Mom never explains it right. Daniel took a deep breath. How do you explain to 8-year-olds about ambition, about wrong choices, about pride and fear? I was different before. I thought what mattered was being rich, famous, successful. And when I met your mum, we were very young. I loved her, but I thought my dreams were more important. So I left. And your mum never told me about you because I had made it clear I didn't want anything from my past in my new life. That was really stupid, Olivia said with the brutal honesty of children. It really was, Daniel agreed with a sad smile. But have you changed now? Emma asked. I have, because I met you all, and I realized that nothing I've achieved matters if I don't have you in my life. The girls thought about this as they went back to mixing the cookie dough. Mom likes you, Emma suddenly said. We know. Really? Yeah. She pretends she doesn't, but we hear her when she cries looking at old photos, and she gets all weird when you pull up in the car. Weird how? I don't know, weird. Like nervous, but in a good way. Like how Emma gets when Tommy from her class walks by, Olivia teased her sister. I do not, Emma defended, blushing. But it's true that Mom gets weird. Daniel didn't say anything, but he felt that warmth in his chest again. Jessica still felt something for him. Maybe not love, not yet, but something. And that was more than he deserved. The weeks passed. The relationship between Daniel and the girls deepened. He started attending school meetings, always with Jessica's permission. He met the teachers, the little friends. He went to the school theatre presentations, recorded awkward videos on his phone like any dad would. Jessica watched everything from a distance, always cautious, but gradually lowering her guard. She started to trust that he was there to stay, that he wouldn't disappear at the first difficulty. One day she called him to talk after he dropped the girls off at home. Want some coffee? She offered. Sure. They sat in the small kitchen of the apartment. Jessica stirred her coffee with more attention than necessary, clearly nervous. What's up? Daniel asked gently. I wanted to thank you, she began, for what you've been doing for the girls. I know it hasn't been easy and you could have given up a long time ago, but you didn't. I'm never going to give up, Jessica. I'm starting to believe that, she admitted. And that scares me. Why? Because the more I believe it, the more I open up. And if you leave again, it won't just be me who gets hurt. It'll be them too. And I don't know if I can protect them from that pain. Daniel reached his hand across the table, stopping before touching hers, waiting for permission. After a moment, Jessica intertwined her fingers with his. I'm not leaving, he said, looking into her eyes. I know it's hard to believe. I know I broke your trust. But Jessica, these girls are the best part of me. You always were the best part of me. I was just too stupid to realize it before. Daniel. No, let me speak. I spent 9 years of my life building things that I now realize mean nothing. Companies, investments, reputation. All of it is empty. But when I'm with you all, when I see the girls laughing, when you smile, even if it's unintentional, I feel like I'm finally doing something that matters. Jessica had tears in her eyes. You hurt me so much, she whispered. I know, and I'll never be able to erase that. But I can try to make up for it, every day, for the rest of my life. I don't know if I can trust again. Then I'll prove that you can. Not today, not tomorrow. But one day. They stayed like that for a while, holding hands over the kitchen table, a comfortable silence between them for the first time since they had reunited. It was broken by Emma appearing at the door, sleepy. Mom, I can't sleep, she started, then stopped when she saw the two holding hands. A huge smile spread across her face. Are you two dating? What? No. Jessica quickly let go of Daniel's hand, blushing. Oh, that's too bad, Emma pouted. It would be cool if you dated. Then he could live here and we'd be a real family. Emma, go to sleep, Jessica ordered, but there was tenderness in her voice. Okay. But think about what I said. The girl winked and went back to her room. When she left, Daniel and Jessica exchanged glances and laughed. It was a genuine, light laugh, the first they had shared in almost 10 years. She has a point, Daniel said, still laughing. Daniel. I'm joking, he raised his hands in surrender. Sort of. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, make sure to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. The months passed. A routine settled in. Daniel and Jessica weren't a couple, but they were something. Parents together, friends maybe, with an underlying tension that neither of them quite knew what to do with. It was when the landlord really raised the rent that things changed again. The increase was so high that even working every day, including Sundays, Jessica wouldn't be able to pay and still keep the other bills on time. Daniel found out because Olivia told him, worried, when he went to pick them up on a Sunday. Mommy is really worried, the girl said in the car. She thinks we don't notice, but we notice everything. She was even looking at rentals in cheaper places, but they're all too far from school. We don't want to change schools, Emma added. We like our friends there. Daniel listened with a tightening heart. He had money, he had a lot of money. He could fix this with a snap of his fingers. But he knew Jessica would refuse any direct offer. So he had another idea. The next day he went to the food cart when he knew the girls were at school. Jessica, I need to talk to you. She looked at him cautiously. Whenever he started like that, it meant he was going to suggest something she wouldn't like. What is it? I have a business proposal for you. I don't want your charity, Daniel. It's not charity. It's really a business. Hear me out before you refuse. She crossed her arms but nodded for him to continue. I want to open a restaurant, a small but quality place, and I need someone who really knows how to cook, someone with experience in street food, who understands what people like. And you think I'm that person? I know you are. Jessica, I've tasted your food. It's amazing. And you learned from your mother, who had one of the best restaurants in the area. You have talent that's being wasted here. My work isn't a waste. I didn't mean it like that. I meant you could do more, achieve more, not for me, but for you, and for the girls. And what do you get out of this? A good restaurant, And time with you all. With them. With you. Jessica stayed quiet, thinking. He saw when she was about to refuse and quickly continued. It would be a real partnership. You'd be a partner, not an employee. You'd have full autonomy over the menu, over how you want to do things. I'd only provide the initial capital and help with the administrative part. The final decision on everything would be yours. Why do you want to do this? Because you deserve more than staying in this cart for the rest of your life. Because the girls deserve to see their mother fulfilled. And because I want to make peace with the past. And if I can't change what happened, at least I can try to make the future different. Jessica looked at him for a long time. Daniel saw hope shining in her eyes, but also fear. I need to think, she finally said. Of course. Take as much time as you need. It was 2 weeks of silence. Daniel didn't insist, didn't pressure. He just kept showing up to see the girls, kept being present. And he waited. Until one night, his phone rang. It was Jessica. I accept, she said as soon as he answered, but with conditions. Go ahead. I want everything on paper, an official partnership contract, with lawyers and everything. No informal agreement that you can change whenever you want. No problem. And I choose the location. I want something in my neighborhood, something that serves the community. Perfect. And the restaurant's name will be Teresa's Flavor. It was my mother's restaurant's name. Her voice faltered a bit at the end, and Daniel felt his chest tighten. It's a beautiful name, he said softly. So do we have a deal? We have a deal. The following months were intense. Daniel and Jessica worked together, searching for the perfect location, negotiating with owners, planning renovations. It was the first time they had worked together, and despite occasional differences of opinion, they discovered they worked well as a team. The girls were excited. They went to the location almost every day after school, watching the renovations happen, giving their opinions on colors and decorations. Daniel hired a local artist to paint a mural with the theme of family and food, and the girls were amazed when they saw the result. Throughout this time, Daniel and Jessica grew closer. It wasn't romance, not yet, but it was partnership, it was friendship, it was mutual respect. They laughed together now, planned together, dreamed together. One night when they were working late on the final details before the opening, Jessica looked at Daniel and said something he didn't expect. Thank you. For what? For not giving up. I pushed you away so many times, I was so difficult, but you stayed there, you kept trying, and now I see that you've really changed. You and the girls changed my life, Daniel said simply. It wasn't just us. You decided to change. We just helped you see what was important. That night they worked side by side, shoulder to shoulder, and when it was time to leave, there was a moment at the door where their eyes met, where something might have happened. But Jessica looked away first. She wasn't ready yet. And Daniel respected that. He had waited 9 years. He could wait a little longer. The opening of Teresa's Flavor was an event for the community. Jessica insisted on affordable prices, generous portions, on making food that nourished not only the body but the soul. And people came. They came in crowds. Daniel stayed in the background, letting Jessica shine. She was radiant, wearing the apron that had belonged to her mother, running the kitchen with confidence and joy. The girls helped where they could, proud of their mother, proud to be part of it all. At the end of the night, when the last customers had left, they sat together on the restaurant's porch. Jessica was exhausted but happy, a kind of happiness Daniel hadn't seen in her for a long time. "We did it," she said, amazed. "You did it," Daniel corrected. "I just helped." "No, we did it, together." The word hung in the air between them, together. They were together now, in a way they hadn't been before, not just as parents of the same children, but as true partners. "Daniel," Jessica began hesitantly, "have you ever thought about how things could have been, if you hadn't left that day?" "Every day," he admitted, "especially since I met you again. Sometimes I think maybe it happened this way for a reason. We were so young then, so immature. You had your dreams, I had mine. Maybe we needed to grow apart before we could truly be together. Do you think we can? Be together for real?" Jessica looked at him, really looked, and Daniel saw all the emotions passing over her face. Fear, hope, love, caution. "I don't know," she answered honestly, "but I think I might want to find out." It was enough. For now, it was more than enough. The following months were a period of adjustments. The restaurant was doing well, even better than they had expected. The girls were happy, seeing their parents working together, seeing the genuine smile returning to their mother's face. And Daniel and Jessica, they were navigating. Sometimes it seemed like they were about to take a step forward, other times they pulled back, but always respecting each other's boundaries, always letting things happen naturally. It was on an ordinary night when they were closing the restaurant together that things finally changed. An old song was playing on the radio, a song that had been important to them in the past. "Remember this song?" Jessica asked, stopping cleaning the tables. "How could I forget? It played the first time we danced together. It was at your graduation. You were so nervous you stepped on my foot 3 times. "Hey, I've improved since then," Daniel protested with a smile. "Oh yeah? Prove it." She extended her hand, challenging. Daniel took it, pulling her closer, and there, in the middle of the empty restaurant, with only the light from the lamps and the sound of the radio, they danced. It was different from 9 years ago, slower, more meaningful. There was no urgency, no nervousness, just 2 adults who had been through so much, lost so much, and were now trying to find their way back to each other. "I never stopped loving you," Daniel whispered. "Even when I pretended I did, even when I tried to move on, it was always you." "Daniel, you don't have to say anything now. I just needed you to know." But Jessica didn't look away this time. Instead, she put her hand on his face, gently. "I never stopped either," she admitted. "I tried, God knows I tried, because loving you hurt so much. But I couldn't. And when you came back, when I saw you with the girls, I realized that maybe love doesn't have to hurt. Maybe it can be something good." And then finally, after 9 years, they kissed. It wasn't like before when they were young and reckless. It was better. It was a kiss with history, with meaning, with a promise of a future. When they pulled apart, both had tears in their eyes. "Don't hurt me again," Jessica pleaded. "Please." "Never," Daniel promised. "Never again." It didn't happen overnight. They didn't move in together immediately, didn't announce an official relationship, but they started dating again slowly, rediscovering each other. And this time it was different, it was better, because now they knew the value of what they had almost lost. The girls, of course, noticed immediately. "Finally," Emma exclaimed when she saw them holding hands one day. "We were starting to think it would never happen." "You guys are pretty slow with these things," Olivia agreed, making everyone laugh. The months turned into more than a year. The restaurant established itself as a success in the community. Jessica had fulfilled her mother's dream in a new way, a way of her own, and she had done it not in spite of Daniel, but with him by her side. Daniel, in turn, had found something all his money could never buy: family, purpose, love. He still had his businesses, was still financially successful, but now that was just part of who he was, not the most important thing. One Sunday afternoon, when they were all together in the apartment where Jessica and the girls still lived, but where Daniel now practically lived too, Olivia asked a question. "When are you guys getting married?" Jessica choked on the water she was drinking. Daniel gave that smile that was now familiar. "You want us to get married?" he asked. "Of course," both replied together. "Then we'd be a real family," Emma explained. "We already are a family," Jessica said gently. "But it would be official," Olivia insisted. Daniel and Jessica looked at each other. It was a conversation they had already had, vaguely, but they always put it off, afraid of rushing, afraid of ruining what was working so well. "What if I ask your mum to marry me?" Daniel said, looking at the girls but clearly speaking to Jessica too. "Do you think she'd say yes?" "It depends," Jessica joined in the playful tone, her heart racing. "On how you're going to ask." Daniel stood up, walked over to where she was sitting, and to her surprise knelt down. There was no ring, no planning, but there was certainty. "Jessica Parker, I was an idiot 9 years ago. I let you go when I should have stayed. I missed 9 years of our daughters' lives. But you gave me a second chance I didn't deserve. You gave me the opportunity to get to know these 2 amazing girls. You gave me the chance to be part of a real family. I don't have a ring right now. I didn't prepare anything beautiful to say, but I love you. I love you, and I love our daughters more than I ever thought possible. And I want to spend the rest of my life proving every day that I'm worthy of this second chance. So, will you marry me?" Jessica was crying, her hands covering her mouth. The girls were thrilled, barely able to stay still. "Yes," she said between tears and laughter. "Yes, I will." The girls burst into celebration, jumping and shouting. Daniel stood up and hugged Jessica, and she hugged him back tightly. And there, in that small apartment that had seen so many tears, so many struggles, there was finally pure joy. The wedding took place 6 months later. It was simple on the restaurant's balcony, with only family and close friends. Emma and Olivia were bridesmaids, radiant in their little dresses. When Daniel and Jessica exchanged vows, there wasn't a dry eye in the audience. "I promise to be present," Daniel said, looking into Jessica's eyes. "Every day, in every moment, in joys and in hardships. I promise to be the father our daughters deserve and the partner you deserve. I promise that this time, it's forever." "And I promise to trust," Jessica replied. "I promise to believe in what we've built. I promise we'll face everything together, always, as a family." When they kissed as husband and wife, the girls ran and hugged them, and there, all 4 of them embraced. They were finally complete. Life went on. They moved to a bigger house where each girl had her own room, but still close to the school and the restaurant. Daniel involved the girls in his business when appropriate, teaching them about finances and management. Jessica expanded the restaurant, making room for cooking classes for the community. Emma and Olivia grew up knowing they had been the result of a young and reckless love, but that they were now embraced by a mature and committed love. They knew their parents' story. They knew about mistakes and redemption, about second chances and forgiveness. And years later, when they were already teenagers and Daniel and Jessica were sitting on the house's porch, watching the stars, Jessica rested her head on his shoulder. "It was worth it," she said. "All the suffering, all the pain. It was worth it because it brought us here." "I still wish I could go back in time and not have been an idiot," Daniel admitted. "Me too, sometimes. But then I think about who we were then and who we are now. We needed to grow, we needed to learn. And look at what we've built." She was right. They had built something beautiful, a family, a business, a life. It wasn't easy, it wasn't without pain, but it was real, it was true. And when Daniel kissed the top of her head, when he heard the sound of the girls laughing inside the house, he knew he had finally found what he had been searching for his whole life. It wasn't in achievements or money. It was there in that simple moment with the people he loved. The hot dog cart had been sold long ago, but sometimes, on special days, Jessica would borrow it from the new owner and set it up in front of the restaurant, making hot dogs just the way she used to. It was a way to remember where they had come from, how much they had struggled, how much they had grown. And always, without fail, Daniel would show up to buy one. He always ordered the same thing, always gave the same smile. And Jessica always responded with that sparkle in her eyes that he had learned to love so much. The girls watching would always roll their eyes dramatically. "You two are so cheesy," Emma complained, but she was smiling. "It's disgusting," Olivia agreed, also smiling. "Just wait until you fall in love," Daniel replied. "Then you'll understand." And maybe they would understand one day. They would understand about love that hurts and then heals, about second chances, about how sometimes you need to lose everything to realize what truly matters. But for now they were just happy. Happy with their loud and loving family. Happy with the restaurant that was a dream come true. Happy simply to be together. And maybe in the end that's what mattered. Not the past they couldn't change, not the future they couldn't predict, but the present, the here and now, together. End of story. And you, what did you think of this story of second chances and redemption? Can you picture yourself in Jessica's shoes, deciding to trust again someone who hurt you? Share your honest opinion in the comments and tell us where you're watching from. We love reading every message from you. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other heart-touching emotional stories.